Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about how the kidney works without going into, it's going to be an overview really, without going into that much detail of how it does it. Okay, now the job of the kidney is to filter the blood to get rid of urea, which is a waste product, toxic waste product, which comes from the breakdown of amino acids. And it's also the job of the kidney to get rid of water where necessary, to control the water volume of your body. Okay, so there's a diagram of the kidney in cross section. And you can see here we've got this area here called the pelvis. That is where the newly made urine collects, and then it goes down this tube called the ureter. Here, this is called the ureter, to the bladder where it's stored. Now, if you look at the kidney, you can see there's two distinct areas. There's this area, the cortex on the outside, which is slightly paler, and the medulla, the inside, but in the middle, the medulla, which is darker. Okay, and as we'll see in a later video, the job of the medulla is to create a very high salt concentration, which enables water by osmosis to draw water out of the newly formed urine so that you don't lose huge volumes of water. Right, so let's have a look at the functional unit of the kidney, which is called a nephron. Okay, now this is a diagram of a nephron here, and what it does is it filters blood, and you have about 500,000 nephrons per kidney, so each one is absolutely minute, microscopic. But just to show you where they would be, I'll show you on the other diagram. You can see this shape here, the Bowman's capsule. This is where the filtration occurs, and that would appear here on this diagram. So if I drew one of those here's the Bowman's capsule, which would just be in the cortex. And then this loop of Henle bit that dips into the medulla, and then it comes back out again. And then the collecting ducts I'll draw in green there, that goes into there. Now the loop of Henle, this loop which loops into the cortex, that's into the medulla, that is really important in developing high salt concentration. We'll talk about that later. Don't forget, so there's one nephron I've drawn there. There are actually about 500,000 per kidney. Okay. So this is the first thing to look at is this Bowman's capsule. Now this is where filtration occurs. So blood comes in a branch of the renal artery, so it's under high pressure. It's coming here, and on this surface of the Bowman's capsule, right, it's the fluid part of the blood is squeezed through there. Okay, and so what happens is you're going to have the filtrate, which is going to accumulate inside this yellow tube here called the nephron. Okay, and that is that's the proto-urine. Okay, and that's going to end up becoming the urine. But let's just have a look. I think what's going to be filtered at the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so left in the blood is going to be the big thing. So you're going to get the cells and all the red blood cells and the protein. So if you have red cells in someone's urine, you can see there's blood in it. It's obviously something we want. Damage to the kidneys occurs, and proteins, you shouldn't be getting any protein in the urine either. What will end up in the filtrate are all the small molecules. So you end up with water, sodium and chloride ions, glucose, amino acids, and the waste product molecule urea, which is small. Okay, now you don't want to, you're going to end up in the filtrate, all of those things there. Obviously, you don't want all of those things to go into the urine. So imagine if you formed the initial filtrate here, which have gone in green. If it goes down this tube, down the loop of Henle, around, and then through this distal convoluted tubule and out of the collecting duct, that means the urine would contain lots of water, sodium chloride, glucose, and amino acids. And you obviously don't want to lose all of that. You can't afford to lose all of that. In fact, I think if you look in most textbooks, it's usually, in a normal person, you'll get about 200 liters of fluid a day, or 200 liters of filtrate are formed in all of the nephrons, the two kidneys combined. if you don't get some of that back, you're obviously going to be losing 200 liters of fluid a day, which is totally impossible. Also, you would not want to lose any of the glucose. You've got glucose in there, or you wouldn't, because that's it's food stuff. You would not want to lose any of the amino acids in there at all. You want to get them all back, and you want to get most of the sodium and the chloride ions back as well. You may want to excrete some sodium and chloride if you've taken too much in your diet, but you don't want to be losing all of it. And again, a similar calculation, I think. There's about 1 kilogram of sodium chloride. 1 kilogram a day of sodium chloride ends up in the filtrate, and quite obviously you can't afford to be losing 1 kilogram of salt every single day, so some of it's got to come back. So let's talk about what the rest of the tubule does. So we form the filtrate up here in the Bowman's capsule, and the rest of the tubule really is to get back, the job of it is to get back all of these things that you don't want to lose. So the proximal this bit here is called the proximal convoluted tubule. Convoluted tubule because it's all it's kind of it's all wobbly, okay, and it's convoluted. And there, what will happen is you'll get a lot of the sodium ions and chloride ions will be removed, and the glucose, nearly all of the glucose is got back there, and nearly all of the amino acids, they are reabsorbed back into that blood vessel there. See that little capillary which is associated with the with the nephron. Also, you'll get quite a lot of water being absorbed there as well. A lot of the water is being reabsorbed. If you we'll see it is active transport. If you remove sodium and glucose and chloride ions by active transport effectively, then osmotically the water is going to follow that. So that's why you get quite a lot of water reabsorbed there. Now the loop of Henle, we'll talk about in a later video, but the main job of the loop of Henle is very clever. It generates a very high sodium chloride concentration in the renal medulla. Now this pink line I've drawn here, this would be the cortex, and the other side of that is the medulla. And the lower down into the medulla you go, the higher the sodium chloride concentration becomes. And that's very important, because what that will do is you get an osmotic effect here, and that will cause water to leave the collecting duct. And so the water this is H2O coming out here. The water is removed from the urine and goes back eventually into these blood vessels here. And so it's returned to the blood. And so what you will get coming out of here is a small amount of concentrated urine. As we'll see in a later video, if you have drunk a lot of water, then you will want to produce more dilute urine, because you will want to excrete some water. If you're thirsty, on the other hand, you will produce a small amount of very concentrated urine. Much more water will be absorbed from the urine. So that is the basics of what the kidney does, and in later videos we'll talk about how the nephron manages to achieve all of those things.